I'd have followed to the end of the world. Tracy. Catholic girl. If I went round to her house, I'd get chased home by the wee shites that used to hang around her estate. And let's just say that was the better option than trying to...
Like, I loved the way it went on and told each of their stories, and it was very, very individual, and I think it told them really well.
I did go to university. Yeah, I just never really made it through. I guess I threw myself a bit too much into the whole university experience, shall we say. Well, it'd be fair to say I'd been doing that since I was about 14, but university seemed to bring a particular focus to it. What's this?
Eh?
This. These files.
I think with our students, a lot of them didn't really know what the RUC was really, so I think now they certainly understand that the police force in Northern Ireland was something very different to what it is today, and that, you know, there was a process to go through that change, and they kind of understood a bit more maybe about what that change was like for people.
He looked up as I lifted her. The look in his eye was terrible. Haunted, almost wild. Something that has never left me.
I think the dialogue was really hard-hitting, felt really drawn in with the characters and with their stories, and certainly felt, I suppose, yeah, a certain degree of empathy with all the characters.
Like that before. Oh God, feelers. I'm regressing.
I would like to do my best for something, or for somebody. Here's hoping.
You know, everybody perceives the RUC as a kind of structure, it's a thing, it's not people. And I was interested in the people, the rank and file officers, who come under stress for day after day, year after year, in terms of conducting their work. And I wanted to see about representing that, and I didn't see anybody else trying to do it. I had this idea to do this back in 2003, so it's taken 10 years to get it to the stage.
And for me, really, the human aspect of it was the most important piece of this. The personalising of policing is really, really important. Because when we put on the uniform, I think we are still people. And the more we can personalise policing and allow you folks to see the human side of policing, the better for us all in our society.
I just think it's very important that stories are told, and there's not a lot of it being told. The arts is a great way to get it across, and certainly drama is a great medium to get that story out there, and to start conversations and provoke debate maybe.
People from the Catholic community don't understand the loss that Protestants feel since 1968. Lost the RUC, lost the UDR, lost the B Specials, lost the right to parade, lost the Queen's photograph, lost the councils, lost the right to fly the flag 365 days a year. But Catholics don't understand that loss.
I think the Troubles undoubtedly has had an effect on our young people coming forward, on the generation and the next generation. I talked there about young folk being brought up in an abnormal society for a start. You know, it wasn't normal to be going in this shop and getting searched before you go into it or whatever. You know, that's abnormal. Being brought up in my case, in a security forces family, or my kids are brought up in a security forces family where they've been told you can't go on that school trip because it's going a certain place, you can't bring certain people home or whatever because they'll see uniforms or that. You can't get into the car until it's driven down the road to make sure it doesn't blow up.
But there's other people within the RUC have a lot of other stories that people have never heard the human side of what it was like to be a police officer during that period.
But that night there was a lot of messages all came through, like, and I couldn't believe it. There was hundreds of them, absolutely hundreds of them poured out. Poems, like they were shown in the background of the play there. They were, in the play it's sort of shown come over the radio, but it wasn't. It was through messages about colleagues that had been murdered, just about Catherine and about the feeling of the night, and about the government and what was happening, So yes, the feeling was very strong throughout all of the police stations that night, without a doubt,
People talk about police stations, but in nationalist areas we talk about police barracks, in that we don't think of it as being or we didn't think of police stations as any sort of a community facility or a service. We would have a very different experience and a very different perspective to policing than what people down here would have, or people within the unionist community would have had. In terms of the actual drama and what was happening with the changeover, I think in a very poignant way that captures the political changes and reflects the political changes that are happening in the north today.
They'd come through so much tragedy and they felt that they were being sidelined. They felt that they were being dismissed. They felt that they were being the perceived troublemakers, that they were the problem, that they were the sectarian side of the state.
It's not going to go away, but politicians don't listen to people. I mean, they've all got the wee groups that they sit on and they, oh yes, I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine. But the people who actually lived through that, who saw their people being blown up, lifting up pieces, what was really done for them? Nothing. Nothing. They were just forgotten about. Change of name, out the door, that's it. They weren't appreciated. And as I say, I understand that there are some people in the Republican movement who did have problems with the RUC. I'm not denying that. But we have to recognise what they actually did for all of us for a lot of years.
In 1972, there were something like 10,500 shootings in 1 year. 10,500.
We're able to do things now that we couldn't do 10 years ago, such as share platforms with people who are in the RUC, who are now in the PSNI. And there are people from my background involved in the policing board, whether we're doing a good or a bad job. It's surely progress that they're all together.
A number of years ago, we wouldn't have had this interaction. And I mean, it was interesting sitting in Cultureland up in the heart of, Derry, Londonderry, and you have a whole lineup of police in Cultureland, which is an Irish language centre. That wouldn't have happened a few years ago, so it was really interesting, the interaction, the respect. I had expected people to come in and challenge and be quite antagonistic towards the police who were at the front.
I'm surprised I'm even sitting here having this discussion, because in more recent times we've been talking about revisiting the past, regurgitating the past, re-traumatising people. And I think that's happening day in Derry, and I think there's a big danger in all of that, because the more and more we revisit, I'm not saying we shouldn't revisit, but I think we need mechanisms by which we can resolve a lot of the issues, the outstanding issues that are there.
Yeah, sure, identify with some of that frustration. For me, I kind of maybe intellectualised it a bit, and said, really, we've got to get over the loss of badges, symbols, uniform, and that piece around, you know, fallen colleagues. It was interesting that I had a conversation with some ex-combatants about that, and exactly the same discussion going on in the Republican movement around what was it all for. When you look at the list of names of people who were lost, for us that was you know, really hurtful. What did those people give their lives for when you sort of felt so down the river? And I'm sure some people in the Republican community and the Loyalist community felt exactly the same.